If there's still a speck of solidity or any sense of separation between objects that you perceive, or even the perceiver and the perceived, we're still inside the matrix. If there's still a discrimination between dream and reality, or distinctions between dimensions, we're still inside the matrix. If there's still a person or some entity looking out at the world, instead of just the universe being itself, not perceiving, because perception is still a filter, content, we're still inside the matrix. If there's an avatar inside your head where sounds are hitting its eardrums, or if you still feel like you're seeing through some eyeballs, or that thoughts are inside your head, then you're still inside the matrix. If there's still a duality identification with the feminine with the masculine, you're still in the matrix.
The final step is to turn awareness onto itself. Annihilate the meditator.
If there's still attachment between this or that is the matrix or not, you're still in the matrix. All that are unnecessary concepts, filters, and layers added on by the mind to create distinctions and separation, or a self taking credit for experiences by condensing infinity into finite forms that you can't be identified with as being you. As a matter of direct experience, there's no thinker, only thinking, no seer, only seeing, no hearer, only hearing.
Frank Yang's never entered conscious, only awareness is aware of itself.
You can dissolve all the above, but if there's still a sense of a witness, which is the last dance against freedom. See, I even hesitate to use the word awareness now because it implies that your true nature, which is no locations, no qualities, to be some kind of substance or point of concentrations.
But it's everywhere, nowhere.
See, any spiritual mumbo jumbo that talks about finding your center or grounding yourself are baby steps to infinity. There's still a sense of a mirror, even if it's 360 degrees, or even a screen of consciousness. We're still inside the matrix.
How do you know? Well, if you are part of reality, no separation, let me just put it this way. Of course, it can know itself thoroughly and directly. Of course, consciousness can be directly conscious of itself because it is nothing but itself.
Today before I met you, you were with Vivian, right?
Yeah, the last time I saw her was like 7 years ago.
Oh, 7 years ago.
That's going 3, 4.
So that's crazy. I mean, like in a big history. What was it? Yeah? Oh, yo, man. She's crazy. Where are we right now?
I jump from dimension to dimension. I use the laundry room.
Oh, shit.
Annihilate the meditator.
Frank, with all the things you've been saying recently, have you not gone down the path of nihilism?
Nihilism. Because nihilism is just a belief. It's a belief system. I've destroyed and deconstructed all belief systems. Anything that's the stuff of the mind.
What do you mean by belief system?
Everything that is conceptual, anything that's dogmatic, anything that could be described with language. Even the red pill stuff too. There's no pill. Once you start to operate at the level of reality that's closer to reality, you see that nihilism is just like sensory inputs and outputs. Okay, maybe I still have sensations that arise and pass that another person might, if they're in my body right now with those sensations, they might categorize and just put them in a box and say this is nihilism. Those kind of sensations is nihilism. But my mind isn't programmed like that anymore. It doesn't like take a bunch of sensations and then solidify them. Even for like mental masturbation, like it's not even good material. People that are nihilistic, they're just creating a meaning out of meaninglessness. Just like people that are skeptics, they're skeptical about everything else except their own belief in skepticism. Same with like rationalists, hyper-rationalists like Steven Pinker and like Richard Dawkins. They put like reason as the crown of human faculty, but they don't question the reason behind that reasoning. And all the talk about like red pills and like nihilism and skepticism and like existentialism, all that philosophy stuff, it's just the content that are rising out of the context, the deep structure. You go down to the context, to the meta structure, and that's awareness, it's consciousness.
Whatever is aware of the first dimension is the same as that which is aware of the 10th.
Neo broke out of one matrix,
But he was just shuffling content.
he hasn't considered the fact that maybe the brain is just another object of simulation, or the brain is also simulated. In other words, the brain is just another perception, another image, another hallucination arising from infinity or the Godhead, or absolute consciousness, which transcends and includes all dimensions, simulations. There is no pill.
If you really want to escape the matrix, all you have to do is if you postulate reality, it doesn't matter what dimension it is, because it's all made up of the same substance. To construct reality down to the microscopic realm of particles and the empty spaces, till you reach the infinite field that gives rise and manifests all dimensions. The real matrix is being trapped in the paradigm of thinking this reality is more or less real than the other. But from the perspective of the absolute, or from the enlightened perspective, all dimensions are all hallucinations. The world alone is Brahman.
Ever since I found meditation, I just sleep anywhere. Yeah, because I'm always awake and I'm always asleep. So ever since I started meditating, I have no need for public transportation. We're gonna walk to the comedy club, which is like 8 kilometers away. But after that, we're gonna go straight to Malaysia.
So I was listening to Sam Harris talking to a computer scientist. His name was Donald Hoffman, about the nature of reality, and he was arguing that evolution had driven truth about reality to extinction, because having direct knowledge about ultimate reality would not be efficient or beneficial to an organism that just wants to reproduce and survive and pass on their genes. And what we perceive is sort of like a simulation, an interface, a representation of the external reality inside our heads, and not the world in and of itself. And most scientists and philosophers agree with this, but they think that the representation of reality must be pretty close to reality itself. But this guy said the world in and of itself is nothing like the way it's represented in our brain. And he uses this really interesting metaphor about how if you want to send an email, it's best not to know what goes out inside the computer, the ones and zeros and the circuitries, because that would take years to send an email if your brain is bombarded with all this information. If you have all the knowledge about reality, you will get eaten by predators. The only knowledge that you need to have is the desktop interface, the locations and shapes and colors of the icon.
Everything he said is correct, except I don't think he took it far enough. He's still operating in the realm of logic, models, theories, and concepts, and of the mind. He hasn't realized that. Maybe he has, I don't know, but based from his writing, a truth is not an experience, cannot be conceptualized or conceived by anything that is of the mind. So in order for the truth realized, you have to be completely plugged into the source, as the source. So again, it's going to be one-to-one total unification between the perceiver and the perceived. After that final step, all that question about who is a perceiver, what's perceiving what, it just makes no sense anymore. It's too simple. That's why a lot of people with big brains, they can't let go of their big brains and their conceptual modeling conditioning. It's so much more simple than that. You have to take the quantum leap. So from the perspective of absolute infinity, all theories and models, all scientific inquiries are relative. Science is great at producing results and products within the dream world, but it doesn't tell you anything about how to transcend the dream world, to wake up from it.
This is the best representation of jhanas, or states of absorptions during contemplative fitness exercises that I've ever came across. It's not like you're just imagining those visuals inside your head. It's like your entire body, mind, and a reality is transformed to this fluxing, morphing, looping shape. Meditation is just like bodybuilding, except you're flexing the entire universe. But this is not the final form because it's still mind stuff, still an experience. That's why the Buddha, after attaining all the jhanas, he wasn't satisfied. So this is more like a self-portrait of the in-between state of your meat suit, your human form, and infinity, your most natty state. But again, for the millionth time, formlessness and form are identical, but you can only perceive this from the perspective of the formless. And then every object becomes totally holographic and transparent.
The quantum physicists and the neuroscientists are actually solving the same problem. There is no third person and first person division or duality. Maybe there is no matter and mind division. Maybe this is only one substance. If space and time is part of that interface that drives an organism to increase its chances of survival, there must be something else that's giving rise to space-time, the space-time interface. And if it's consciousness, then in a sense we can know it.
Because we are conscious.